The neon haze of Aeloria 7 bathed the bustling spaceport in a kaleidoscope of colors, transforming every passerby into a blur of movement. Among the throngs of intergalactic travelers and traders, Dan Carter shuffled along, gripping a worn bag slung across his shoulder. He was just another human on a planet packed with aliens, but he had a fervent hunger that surpassed the typical rations found on a colony, one that resonated with his very essence. He had heard tantalizing whispers of Yazk's Diner, a renowned culinary hotspot famous for dishes so delightfully bold that even the most hardened spacefarers claimed they could stir a tear from a Galaxian gladiator. In a world packed with stress from flickering trade routes and haggled deals, the diner promised a slice of spice-fueled paradise. Well, perhaps not a slice, more like a heaping plate of sizzling energy, the kind that could provoke a heartfelt moment of contemplation or a mad dash to the nearest restroom. "You know you're going to regret it?" a nearby merchant called, grinning as he expertly packed away a selection of vibrant alien fruits. The merchant's rotund form rippled like a gelatin dessert, bringing a wave of laughter amidst the crowd. "The chef has a fiery reputation. Last time I was there, we lost 3 patrons to spontaneous combustion from the smell alone." Dan shrugged, unfazed, brushing off the merchant's teasing as he fished for confidence in the depths of his being. "I'm not about to let some alien chef intimidate me. I came here for a challenge. Besides, I've got the stomach for spice that would put most earthlings to shame." His bravado floated in the air like an errant balloon, tethered only by the rising nervousness that twisted in his core. But the merchant just chuckled, shaking his head before returning to business. As Dan approached the diner, the aroma struck him first, a medley of spices, sizzling proteins, and otherworldly ingredients blending in the atmosphere like a culinary symphony. The diner stood out like a beacon, its brightly colored neon signs sputtering above, depicting a massive goric bird with its wings spread wide, joyfully devouring a plate of food that hovered in the air. There was something irresistible about the place, pulling him closer, and with each step, his heart raced in anticipation of the flavors that awaited. Inside, the decor was a chaotic tapestry of light and sound. Various alien species filled the booths, laughter mingling with the sizzling and popping from the kitchen. At the center of it all, a massive griddle glimmered with an assortment of ingredients, closely monitored by Yazk himself, or so the patrons whispered. He was an alien unlike anyone Dan had ever seen, his head shaped like a giant onion, skin a shimmering green, and eyes as bulging as they were expressive. Yazk moved with the fluid grace of a dancer, flipping ingredients and mixing spices, as if conjuring culinary magic straight from the stars. Dan spotted an open seat at the counter and plopped down, his enthusiasm bubbling over. "One for the underdog," he joked to the barmaid, a wiry creature whose iridescent skin reflected shades of blue and aqua. She shot him a quizzical look, her eyebrow arched, making his humor feel oddly out of place. "Are you ready for the famous firestorm splat?" she asked, her voice tinged with curiosity and a hint of mockery. "Absolutely," he beamed, his hands wringing together as if he were a child anticipating dessert. "But can I get it with extra spice?" She stepped back, her wide eyes suggesting both disbelief and fear. "You know what that means, right?" "I'm game. I can take it." The bravado, though, that fueled his earlier declarations surged within him, blurring the creeping apprehension that was tickling the edges of his consciousness. Just then, a loud clang erupted from the kitchen, likely Yazk kicking a pot in frustration. Without delay, the chef lumbered over, a dish towel the size of a bedspread draped around his wide torso. "Firestorm splat," he exclaimed, voice a peculiar mix of growls and clicks. "You want extra spice?" Dan nodded vigorously, determination radiating from him. "Yes, please." The chef huffed and wiped his brow. "You humans always want more. I make it just right. Too hot. You may not survive." His green eyes narrowed, the dance between concern and disbelief swirling within them. But Dan laughed, a melodic sound that echoed warmly. "It's just flavor. How hot can it be?" Yazk leaned in, scanning Dan's face as if searching for weakness. "You sure you can handle it? Not every mouth is equipped for this level of courage. I know what too hot means, and I've watched many quit in tears." Dan smirked, waving a dismissive hand. "Bring it on. What's a little spice among friends?" Yazk sighed dramatically, running a hand under his oversized chin, the weight of his responsibility evident in the way his half-hearted momentum slowed. Finally, he relented. "Okay, extra spice. You ask for it." With a firm glance, he turned and lumbered back to his station, his vibrant apron swaying with each step as he muttered about foolish humans and their appetites for regret. Minutes dragged on, stretching into what felt like eternities, as the other diners continued to bustle around him. Dan's anticipation soared, fluttering dangerously towards anxiety. Laughter and conversations erupted around him, but all he could focus on was the mystery of what awaited. Would he endure the intensity, or was he marching into a grand culinary disaster? Finally, Yazk returned, setting in front of Dan a dish that appeared extraterrestrial, swirling with fiery colors, steam rising like a phantom from its surface with an energetic sizzle. The scent that wafted from it was intoxicating and overwhelming, wrapping around him like a warm embrace hiding a playful sting. "Be careful," Yazk warned, voice gravelly with concern. "This is not for soft tongues." "I'm ready." Dan grinned, pushing aside the sudden prickling sensation inching up his spine. With a swift motion, he scooped up a generous portion. A moment of electrifying silence fell around him, anticipation thickening the air. The first bite exploded on his tongue, a searing inferno that rushed through his veins, igniting every nerve. A shocked gasp slipped from his lips as sweat dripped down his brow. He couldn't just swallow, he needed to savor this chaos. "Too hot," a nearby alien screeched, launching from their chair like a projectile. "Is that too much?" Dan shouted, laughter bubbling within him, despite the fiery agonies that licked at his tongue. Yazk watched, his frown deepening as the human continued chewing through the ordeal. Maybe, just maybe, this was for brave tongues after all. Dan's unyielding spirit and unrelenting appetite sparked intrigue among the patrons. Was the human smiling amidst the pain? Could he actually manage the dish? "You're insane," the barmaid yelled, but Dan just grinned wider, the flames intensifying yet feeding into his excitement. "Bring it on," he roared playfully, his challenge met with a blend of laughter and astonishment from those around him. Yazk raised a brow, a hint of reluctant pride softening the crease of his forehead as he observed Dan navigate the culinary chaos before him. As the flames twisted and danced upon his tongue, Dan's discovery unfurled. A soft human tongue could ignite fiery passions and spark connections among worlds, merging galaxies through flavor, laughter, and a profound understanding of culinary excitement. It dawned on him that spice, in its most potent form, was not merely a taste, it was a bridge to unity, an adventure waiting to unfold. And as he gulped down another mouthful, he knew that this was only the beginning, a prelude to the greater battles and bonds that awaited him in this unfolding tapestry of the universe. The frenetic atmosphere thickened with anticipation as the challenge unfolded. The anglers, with their radiant skin and smug expressions, began to set up their cooking station. They moved with the precision of seasoned pirates, a flick of the wrist here, a flash of color there, transforming the flow of energy around them into a tangible wave of excitement and recklessness. Dan and Yazk stood across from them, the weight of the moment bearing down on their shoulders like the galaxies overhead. "We need a plan," Yazk muttered, his eyes scanning their opponents. "These anglers may be flamboyant, but they know their craft. We can't let them outshine us." "What do we have?" Dan asked, hurriedly assessing the meager supplies that had begun to materialize on their side. A few jars of spices, some basic vegetables, and a couple of oddly shaped meats that Dan hoped would be edible. Yazk's eyes glimmered with inspiration. "We'll leverage our strengths. You, my brave human, have the heart of a fire breather. Let's combine the spices with our culinary know-how and elevate everything above their jeweled theatrics." The angler's leader, still gleeful from the prospect of their victory, turned back to Dan with a smirk. "We'll give you one chance to save your dignity. What shall be our secret ingredient?" It was a taunt, but Dan felt the rush of adrenaline course through him, his mind racing. "How about the nebulae spices? We'll use what we stand to lose for our flavor," he shouted as a wild idea ignited in his mind. It was a bold move, an acknowledgement of the stakes at hand. The angler's sneering grin faltered for a brief moment, surprise coloring their jewel-toned features. But it was only a flicker before their laughter thundered again, a sound that echoed through the marketplace. "You sure about that? They've already gone to our ship. We'll just crush you with whatever scraps are left." Dan's resolve solidified further. He could not let despair win, not when so much hinged on this moment. "Watch me," he replied with a self-assured calm. Yazk nodded in agreement, his presence beside Dan like a warm beacon. "Let's gather what remains and add layers to this dish. The taste needs to sing, and we're tuning our instruments now." As the simmering tension escalated, both sides began to gather their ingredients, and Dan quickly found himself in the whirlwind of preparation. The electric energy in the diner transformed as the challenge became a visible spectacle, with patrons gathering like moths to a flame, ready to witness this culinary showdown. He positioned himself next to Yazk, whose deft hands danced through the available ingredients, slicing and dicing with astonishing speed. Together, they concocted a legendary medley, a fiery stew infused with whatever they could muster: the strangely shaped meats, a handful of colorful vegetables, and what little spices they managed to gather from their corner of the battlefield. Dan chopped alongside Yazk, learning the chef's rhythms, finding confidence in his own methods. Meanwhile, the anglers commenced theatrics of their own, flamboyant displays flaring with colorful exotic produce harvested from planets Dan had never heard of. They tossed ingredients into the air, draping their cooking station with shimmering garnishes, their artistry mesmerizing but deceptively hollow. "Don't get distracted," Yazk warned, sweat glistening on his brow as he peered over at their opponents. "The performance is just that. It's our flavor that will carry the day." The cacophony around them amplified as each side cranked up the intensity of their preparations. Dan focused on the essence of flavor, reminding himself why he was here: to reclaim the spices, to protect a community that had welcomed him with open arms. Finally, the moment of truth approached. A countdown echoed from the raucous crowd as the cooking transformed from frantic chaos to moments of beauty. As pots bubbled and the air filled with tantalizing scents, it was time to present their creations to the eager audience assembled. On the count of 3, came the booming voice of the angler leader, his eyes twinkling with mischief. The anticipation coiled tighter, sending hearts racing. 1, 2, 3. In a flurry of movement, both sides unveiled their dishes. Dan's team presented a charred-skewered galactic delight, basted in the fiery nebulae spice infusion, paired with a densely flavored roasted nebula salad, glimmering with its mix of molten colors. Across from them stood the angler creation, an ornate bowl of jewel skewers. Each piece sparkled with a hint of magic but lacked substance, the toppings designed to dazzle more than to satisfy. The crowd erupted in hushed whispers, each observer gauging the sensory experiences laid before them. As the dishes were served, the air thickened with the intoxicating aromas. Everyone's taste buds heightened, peppered with the thrill of impending flavors. Dan took his first bite of their dish, the flavors dancing on his tongue: the succulent meat, the spice layering beneath it, and the crisp vegetables releasing bursts of freshness. He could see the fire sparked in the eyes of nearby patrons, their immediate delight fueling his confidence. But did the anglers take the bait? With each taste they seasoned their passion, and it turned into an unexpected phenomenon. The crowd erupted into applause for Dan's crew, but vying to hold their ground, the anglers dug into their own creation, and a collective murmur rippled through the crowd. But as the anglers tasted, something shifted. Their expressions cracked. What had shimmered on the outside now began to fade. An uneasy churning of stomachs echoed across the arena, like the growl of displeased beasts. One angler grunted, wiping away imaginary tears. Another began to loudly retch, and a ripple of panic cascaded into chaos among them. "Not all that glitters is gold," Dan shouted, laughing triumphantly as the crowd erupted in laughter. The upbeat tension returned alongside camaraderie. But the angler leader, red-faced, furiously emerged from behind the counter. "This isn't over," he spat, his voice dripping with shades of anger and frustration. In a wild fit of spite, he raised his vine weapon to the sky, ready to unleash more turmoil upon them. "Hold." Yazk's voice boomed, grounded and filled with authority. "You've tasted defeat, and your prize eludes you. Walk away with your dignity, if you really wish for peace, or face the consequences of plundering our livelihoods." With the words hanging in the air, a pivotal moment unfolded. The passionate bond forged through flavors sang like a resounding plea for harmony, reverberating through the chaotic dinner, a reminder that unity would always outweigh conflict. As seconds pressed on, The weight of the angler's anger seemed to dissipate, melting away like the colors of their unsteady dish. Finally, after a lingering pause, the leader stepped back, his pride wounding deeply, but his fury extinguished. "Fine," he spat, frustration brewing between taut breaths as his crew stumbled behind him. "But remember this, human chef. The spice may slip today, but we will meet again." His declaration left an echo trailing behind as they retreated into the shadows, defeated and disgraced. Cheers erupted around the diner as patrons celebrated the triumph of spirit and taste. Yazk glanced at Dan and Aya, pride gleaming in his eyes, his laughter swelling like a bubbling cauldron of joy. "You have done it, brave human. By the fire of your spirit and the flavors of your heart, we reclaim our rightful harvest." In the aftermath, laughter and jubilation enveloped them, each joy interwoven with Camaradean promise. Dan felt a warmth blossom in his chest, a fiery ember birthed from the intensity of their shared struggle. They had defended their community through the power of food, uniting under a cause far greater than themselves. The spirit of their connection solidified through flavors and laughter. In that moment, the sprawling streets of Aeloria 7 transformed around them, their beauty heightened like art, created in unison. The promise of new flavors and adventures flourished, weaving a fateful path that stretched beyond the dining experience. Spices reclaimed, a community bound stronger than before, this nonchalant traveler had transformed into an unlikely hero, embarking on a journey where flavor, culture, and fellowship formed a rich tapestry that extended beyond the plate, an adventure forged not just through flavor, but through the power of friendship and the cosmic ability to rise against adversity with joy and resilience. As they shared in the laughter and warmth, Dan knew this was only the beginning, the first chapter to a much grander saga waiting to unfold among the threads of the galaxies. The jubilant atmosphere crackled with energy as celebratory cheers filled the air. The alleyway, once an arena of combat, had transformed into a space pulsating with shared triumph, a fusion of cultures brought together by food. Dan grinned, exhilaration flooding his senses as he exchanged jubilant glances with Yazk and their newfound friends among the anglers. "Look at them." Dan pointed at the marathon of colors and laughter radiating from their audience, a delightful array of intergalactic life celebrating the harmonious dish before them. Waves of joy washed over him as every eye glimmered with admiration and wonder. "I can't believe we did this together." "It is only the beginning," Yazk replied, his smile a broad, toothy display reminiscent of a proud father. "What you have created here, Dan, transcends mere cooking. You've united us through flavors, taught us that the essence of culinary art runs deeper than individual ingredients." Dan's heart swelled with warm gratitude toward Yazk. He had been a guiding light in this chaotic world, and here, in the muffled realms of creativity, they had both discovered something profound, a friendship that blended not only their spices but their very roots. The angler captain approached, his expression shifting from mockery to genuine respect. "You've proven yourself, Earthling," he said, placing a hand over his chest, a gesture not indicative of his species but one Dan appreciated nonetheless. "Perhaps I was wrong to underestimate you and your people. I will concede that there is more to your culinary culture than flair." Dan met the captain's gaze, struck by the sincerity woven into his words. "Thank you," he replied, his voice steady, feeling the weight of humility wash over him. "But this wasn't just me, or even just Yazk, it was all of us. Together, we created something beautiful." With a swift, dramatic gesture, the captain waved his hands to quiet the crowd, his voice booming once more. "Let it be known, from this day forward, we will not only partake in culinary challenges, but also share our flavors, our heritage, and our love for food across species. We honor unity tonight." Cheers erupted again, drowning out the remnants of animosity that lingered from earlier. Dan couldn't help but feel like the universe rejoiced with them, an affirmation that connection formed through authenticity transcended their differences. As night descended upon Aeloria 7, vibrant lights illuminating the alley, the atmosphere vibrated with excitement and kinship. They served plates upon plates of their collaborative dish, humans and anglers delighting in the flavors they had forged together, swapping stories and recipes, laughter bubbling up with each exchanged bite.
"I never anticipated I would ever learn from an earthling," an angler declared, feasting with a fork-like utensil. "You have shown great resilience in your flavors. What else do you have to share?"
Dan smiled, feeling a surge of confidence. A lot, I hope. There are countless spices still unexplored, each tied to stories, traditions, and cultures he shared, embarking on a culinary dialogue about his favorite family recipes. What began as apprehensive steps onto alien soil now unfolded into a rich narrative of curiosity and excitement. The convergence began to take shape as Dan exchanged stories about Earth's culinary wonders, uncovering surprising similarities and differences that span the stars. The anglers responded with anecdotes of their people's rich traditions, their unique spices bathing Dan in fascination. Aeloria 7's vibrant nightlife intensified around them, and as the immersive camaraderie blossomed, Dan's world expanded further than he had ever imagined. He felt love, embraced in the shared vibrancy of flavors, and every moment filled his heart with hope for future adventures, unearthing stories through food, connecting lives through the art of sharing meals. With the diner echoing with joy, preference for each dish leaned toward experimenting with new ideas. "We must blend our specialties again," Yazk declared, his excitement palpable. "Next time, a festival. We can celebrate interspecies culinary artistry with competitions, showcases, and collaborations." "An intergalactic culinary festival," the captain exclaimed with a chuckle, his enthusiasm igniting the surrounding friends. "I can already envision our dish in the running, glamorous and multi-layered." Dan swept his gaze across the vibrant college of beings, all laughing, mingling, and exchanging flavors. In this moment, he realized that what he had first encountered as an alien challenge had transformed into an enriching home.
"You know what?" Dan said, a mischievous smile creeping across his face. "I think we should spice it up even more. We can challenge other culinary cultures across the galaxy." It was a bold proposition, brazen in its call for collaboration beyond what they had already accomplished, but it hung in the air with promise. The anglers leaned in, eyes sparkling with interest, eyes gleaming.
"Count me in," an angler shouted, reveling in the prospect. A wave of agreement washed over the gathering with a chorus of enthusiastic affirmations chiming from all sides.
As the eclectic medley of voices erupted into new ideas and laughter, Dan felt a tidal surge of dreams unfurl before him. Each flavor represented not merely ingredients, but the stories, dreams, and rich cultures waiting to be explored. They were embarking on an exciting call, collecting stories of the cosmos and weaving them into the tapestry of time through the simple act of eating together.
In the heart of Aeloria 7, surrounded by newfound friends and fragrant spices, Dan realized he wasn't just tasting food, he was tasting the boundless spirit of connection. It illuminated the path forward, binding them together in a colorful embrace of unity. With Yazk at his side and allies from across the galaxy joining hands, Dan felt his heart race, sparking with untamed excitement. Their journey was just beginning. Together, they would explore worlds of flavor, bridging cultures and allowing friendships to flourish in vibrant tastes across every star. A new culinary legacy awaited, and with it the promise of friendships that would stretch beyond time, space, and imagination. The jubilant laughter and chatter radiated from Yazk's diner, creating an atmosphere that felt both electric and heartwarming. Under the shimmering lights and amidst the tantalizing aromas, Dan Carter reveled in the afterglow of their triumphant adventure. Just moments ago, he had transformed from an outsider to a valued part of this vibrant culinary community, where flavors mingled together much like the diverse inhabitants of Aeloria 7. Dan leaned against the polished counter, watching as Yazk animatedly regaled the diner's patrons with tales of their daring heist. The angler captain interjected periodically, enhancing the storytelling with exaggerated gestures and playful banter, showing off the camaraderie that had formed in the vibrant crucible of competition and collaboration. The patrons leaned in closer, their eyes wide with amusement and awe, bringing the air alive with joy and connection.
Even amid this laughter, a question nagged at Dan. The fate of the stolen nebulae spices was still unresolved. While the victory was sweet, it felt somewhat hollow against the backdrop of what had been stolen. He couldn't shake the feeling that their success had merely delayed a much larger issue.
"So, what's the next step?" he asked, Yazk, when the laughter subsided momentarily, his expression growing serious. "We can bask in this moment, but if the anglers have more schemes up their sleeves, we may need to act fast." Yazk, whose jovial demeanor had just shifted, nodded solemnly. "You're right. It's essential we ensure the safety of our continued spice trade. If our nebulae spices are only reclaimed for a moment, Our culinary futures remain precarious. The angler captain seemed to sense the tension too, his eyes narrowing as he absorbed Dan's words. What if I gather my crew, and we make it our mission to find and dismantle any rogue factions that may be behind this? Together we can secure Aeloria 7's most prized flavors. Agreed, Dan said, heart pounding at the thought of embarking on yet another adventure. But how do we find them? Do you have intel? The captain shrugged, his grin suddenly broadening. A reputation can spread faster than the swiftest ship. If we reach out to certain contacts, we may uncover where the remaining spices are being stashed after the heist. It might require a little more charismatic persuasion on our end. Great idea, Yazk exclaimed, but we'll need to approach with care. We don't want to spook them. Dan stood taller, his pulse a rhythmic drum of excitement. I think I can help with that. My charm may not be alien in nature, but it has worked on Earth. With fresh determination igniting their spirits, the quartet returned their focus to the collaborative energies of the diner. Each interaction hammered home a new sense of urgency and purpose. Dan felt the unity build around them as they began mapping out their plan, laughter and clinking glasses fading into the background as new ideas came to life.
First, we'll secure a base camp, the captain suggested, employing a tone of seriousness amidst the lingering buoyancy. A place where we can regroup and strategize. I know just the spot.
As the details fell into place, Dan's excitement bubbled over alongside the renewed purpose shared among his companions. The night had transformed their initial challenge into something more, a quest to protect their newfound connections intertwined through shared culinary magic. Once arrangements were finalized, it became apparent how quickly the diner filled with energy as crowds cheered for the dynamic crew taking charge of their culinary fate. The ideas flowed with each dish served, echoing the laughter and conversation that connected them all. Before long, dawn began peeking over the skyline of Aeloria 7, spilling hints of light onto the diner's faces, floral hues swaying softly, a fresh start, a new quest awaiting to unfold. The next morning found Dan at the makeshift base located in a hidden alcove nearby. Yazk had secured the place well, a cozy nook where the radiant colors of the morning illuminated the space gently, bringing warmth into the room. A chalkboard outlined their targets and anticipated operations, including their various intel leads, the next steps ahead, and an intricate list of flavors they hoped to reclaim.
Here's our first lead, Yazk declared, pointing toward a segment of the board detailing an alley where anglers were rumored to trade stolen spices. Word is they traffic in secrecy, trading deals that could jeopardize our entire community. If we can infiltrate and gather intel, we can potentially reroute the spice trade back to its rightful owners. Dan's mind raced with possibilities, the thrill belying the urgency of their mission. Let's do it. But we'll need disguises again to keep any eyes off our intentions.
The angler captain nodded enthusiastically. I'll gather my crew, and we'll create diversions while you and Yazk scout for information. We'll make it a spectacle lively enough to catch their attention but discreet enough for you to sneak away.
Let's move, Yazk urged, the fire within him propelling them into action. We have allies to recruit and paths to pave. They burst into the scene, scattering into groups, and Dan found himself at the forefront, leading Yazk through the bustling streets of Aeloria 7. Colors and sounds mingled together, creating a melange that seemed to hum in concert to their mission at hand, the restoration of the nebulae spices.
As they ambled through the marketplace styled with rugs and wares that hinted at exotic cultures and histories, Dan became acutely aware of the bounty that lay scattered around them. Not so long ago, every stall he passed felt foreign and daunting. Now they pulsed with resonance and potential, a treasure trove of flavors waiting to be discovered.
Quick there. Yazk pointed discreetly, capturing the vision of two angler merchants who were engaging furtively with cloaked figures in the shadows of an overly adorned stall. We'll listen in. They crept closer, transitioning into the shadows as the raucous banter between the merchants and their clients flowed smoothly. Unbeknownst to the other patrons, the seeming banter concealed discreet layers of conspiracy that sent waves of tension rippling through Dan's veins.
Can you believe it? The human fools think they can just reclaim their spices without knowledge of deeper dealings, one of the cloaked figures hissed, laughter grating against Dan's senses. Fools indeed, But how long can they remain ignorant? An angler merchant countered. We're sitting on a gold mine of flavors. It's only a matter of time before the nebulae spices fetch a higher price than mere trades. We need to extend our reach. Dan's stomach clenched at the revelation of the depth of their greed. This was no mere tussle over spices, it was a scheme that could upend the entire culinary community.
All right, we need to report back. Dan cut in, feeling the gravity of their mission intensify. We cannot let them win.
With a swift nod, they recoiled back into deeper shadows, regrouping to share what they had heard. The tension was palpable among the team. They were all keenly aware that what they had discovered was merely the beginning of a thorny path. Back at their base, the angler captain's crew had gathered, their energy charged, prepared for the call to action. The dark revelations exchanged among Dan, Yazk, and the captain ignited a collective resolve. Now we know they're venturing to tap into greater trades of nebulae spices. We can't afford to let them succeed, the captain declared loudly, catching everyone's attention. We can infiltrate their networks. With our skills combined, we can dismantle their plan and negotiate with the right allies, ensure our community survives and thrives. Agreed, yelled one of the anglers, billowing enthusiasm in the air.
Let's make our approach intentional, Yazk added. Identify key players amid their ranks. The more information we have, the more effective our strategy will be. With a riot of voices stimulating ideas for components to implementations, Dan felt swept into the thrill as everyone rallied around their core's tactics laid bare and narratives spun as they ramped up the determination for the mission awaiting them.
As dusk crept over the horizon once more, casting an otherworldly gleam on the preparations afoot, the crew readied themselves for a culinary endgame. They felt the tides turning, the forces realigning into a collective resolve to stand tall against their threat. In the flickering shadows of Aeloria 7, united not just as adversaries or competitors, but as partners defending the fabric of their intertwined cultures, they committed to a path laden with flavors, friendship, bravery, and hope. Dan couldn't shake the heady anticipation that lay just before them. The culinary world beckoned, ripe for reclamation, waiting to be woven anew. And together, they would rise to meet it, guided by spice's heritage, laughter's legacy, and the promise of culinary adventure that knows no bounds. It was not just about the nebulae spices, it was about the very essence of community, comradeship, and flavors yet to be discovered. With hearts unwavering, they set forth into the unknown, ready to confront the adversaries that threatened to unravel everything they had begun to build. And thus, the journey into the depths of Aeloria 7's heart truly began. As the evening drew to a close and the laughter began to fade, Dan stood amidst the vibrant hum of celebration, the remnants of their successful fusion feast still palpable in the air. The clinking of glasses and the delicious aromas enveloped him like a warm embrace, a fitting contrast to the thrilling uncertainty that had initially brought him to Aeloria 7. With each shared story and uplifting cheer exchanged between species, it struck him how interconnected they all had become. "Hey, Dan!" A voice broke through his reverie. It was Ali, the Regohan he had bonded with on the first night at the diner. His eyes sparkled with excitement as he approached, a plate in hand. "You need to try this. It's our solar-cured fruit, paired with Yazk spice blend, and it's incredible." Dan accepted the plate, lifting the colorful array of fruits glistening in the diner's soft light. He took a bite, and the burst of sweet and tangy flavors merging with the warmth of the spices filled him with delight. "Oh wow, that's amazing," he exclaimed, the flavors dancing on his palate as he savored the concoction. "You were right about blending textures. This is a game-changer." Ali beamed, visibly proud. "We should definitely collaborate more in the kitchen. Imagine the possibilities. I have so many ideas to experiment with, mixing Regohan and Earth styles." "Absolutely. I'd love to explore more of your techniques," Dan replied, the spark of kinship igniting once more between them. "This isn't just a meal, it's a start to something grander." Their conversation flowed seamlessly, an easy back and forth filled with excitement over culinary possibilities. Each shared idea brought them closer, weaving their experiences and creativity into a tapestry of flavors. As dusk settled deeper over Aeloria 7, the diner's windows glimmered with the reflections of the night's festivities. The crowd around them ebbed and flowed, everyone excitedly discussing future collaborations, ideas for a community vibrant with culinary exchange, a festival of flavors that would blend and inspire participants from all corners of the galaxy. In one corner, Yazk was engaging with an enthusiastic group of patrons, thrusting his hands into the air as he animatedly described his visions for the upcoming culinary festival they had discussed. Dan couldn't help but notice the newfound admiration and respect the crowd displayed for him. What had once been a humble diner now radiated with shared dreams and connection, becoming a hub for the fusion of cultures. "Hey Dan," Yazk spotted him, gesturing for him to come forward. "Come on, let's brainstorm together. Everyone deserves to know about your fantastic idea of fusion dishes that tell personal stories. Let's hear what you've got." Dan chuckled, slightly shy but buoyed by the energy surrounding him. "All right, gathering everyone for a collaborative dish," he shouted, excitement coursing through him. "Maybe something that represents the journey we've all had, the struggle, the victory, the friendships formed. We could add elements from Earth and combine them with Aelorian inspirations." An electric buzz crackled through the room as he spoke, and the crowd leaned in, eager for the next bite-sized morsel of his vision. "We could start with a fusion of Rigohan, solar-cured fruits and Aeolorian spiced meats, showcasing the bold fusion of our worlds." "What about a nebulae-infused sauce?" another person suggested, blending his voice into the tapestry of ideas filling the diner. "It could signify not just flavor but also the journey we've undertaken together to reclaim it." Yazk nodded vigorously. "Yes, together we create not just a meal but a story, a celebration of our shared identity. Each bite will remind us of our struggles, creativity, and victories." The energy in the room surged, an orchestra of enthusiasm harmonizing as each guest pulled together in spirited conversations. Plans coalesced, voices intermingling as they tossed ideas back and forth, with each thought igniting more creative sparks. As the vibrant thoughts danced around him, Dan felt a profound realization simmer within. Here, in this colorful diner, he had found a community not just made of chefs and customers, but of dreamers and doers. The flavors brought them together, transcending intergalactic barriers and forging bonds that would withstand the test of time. The fusion night blossomed into something grander than any of them had imagined, a festival in the making that would celebrate the strength of their collective experiences. Hours rolled on until the last traces of their celebratory meal began to wane. Dan felt fatigue tugging at him, yet the exhilarating fatigue was accompanied by a sense of fulfillment. He stepped outside into the cool night air, the stars twinkling down upon him as if acknowledging the journey that lay ahead. "Dan." The voice broke through the tranquility surrounding him. It was the captain approaching, a stark contrast to the soothing night, his expression earnest but laced with a sense of mischief. "I've been thinking, now that we've had our success and the diner stands at the forefront of culinary collaboration, we need a hand working on our next challenge. A rogue faction may still be lurking in the shadows, threatening our hard-won spices." Dan nodded, aware that their mission was not yet concluded. The triumph they had shared was just a chapter in a much larger story waiting to unfold. "You're right. We've come so far and we can't let our guard down now. What do you need from me?" "Your perspective, my friend," the captain replied, gesturing back inside the diner. "Your understanding of Earth's culinary culture and the relationships we've built can be invaluable to our mission. We aim to gather intel and ensure the spice routes remain secure. Together we'll face the challenge and emerge stronger." Dan felt the calling resonating deep within him, the exhilaration from their past struggle reigniting a fearlessness in his heart. "Let's do it," he affirmed, the determination sparking anew in his chest. "Together we can protect what we've built." As he returned to the diner, the ambience buzzed anew with energy, and the melding of ideas shifted and evolved in elegant patterns. The laughter had become a thread woven throughout their story, one that promised resilience amid uncertainty. Their journey was just beginning, the cosmos vast ahead, and Dan felt ready. United by flavors, fueled by ambition, and bound by the jubilant essence of unity, they stepped into the next phase of their adventure, a fusion of friendships that would continue to shape their lives in ways none of them could yet fathom. With heart and spirit intertwined, they ventured forth into the unknown, uncovering the beauty of culinary artistry, exploring the breadth of intergalactic friendship, ever ignited by the bold creativity of flavors that sought to conquer all. This was merely the beginning, and together, they would rise to meet whatever challenges awaited among the stars, all bound by the unbreakable connection they had forged at Yazk's diner. And with that, the universe opened before them, brighter and richer than they had ever dreamed.